Hi there. For my final project, I decided to focus on the fragmented business data, a real problem I have experienced. 90% of businesses still run on Excel reporting, hundreds, thousands of spreadsheets. All for good reason. Excel are simple. But what is the business cost of fragmented data, limited data, or no visibility? It's easy to calculate the cost of paying somebody to produce a report, but what about cost of the waiting time, hours, days, weeks? What about the risk of making decisions based on limited data? That never shows up on an invoice, but it does show up in write-offs. Wrong decisions, the strategies that didn't adapt, overspent, thousands of dollars waiting in inventory. You can't manage what you can't see. And that's the problem my system solves on an example of market operations program. Turning days of waiting into minutes and fragmenting data into one source of truth. Let's see what my system actually looks like. So it consists of several models. Let's first look at model Toolkit. Basically, this is where all the data lives. Right now, in the real world, in fragmented Excel files, my system, it's all based in a Supabase database. How does the data get here? Instead of creating data in Excel and uploading this into Toolkit, I decided to create myself a tool which make data creation much faster. Because I have repeated ways of how I create data, I can just code all the criteria here, and it helps me to generate data much faster. So now I already pre-generated like my basic elements for my program, and I'm just going to save them to Supabase. So it told me 40 items created, and I can use them in the Toolkit Manager. So let's see where they are. Okay, let's look now at what this data tells us, because obviously in any business, it's important to know how much you spend and what you spend on. So what I did is I pre-built some dashboards to look at the KPIs and the spend structure based on different programs and based on different brands, categories, etc. So this dashboard gives you already pretty detailed look at where the dollars are going. Another report I built is at risk monitor. Basically, what it tells me is when I have a program running and I got orders and I'm comparing them to predetermined criteria like my minimum order quantities to see if the orders met it or not. And I determine what investment we have to make and if you're going to make this. This helps to make decisions faster because it can very easily to show investment per item and which item require investment. This is actually a really helpful tool, which I already used in business recently. And it's much better visibility than doing this in Excel file. What other things we can do with my data? We can look at historical analytics from different lens, rational lens, year-over-year performance, or, for example, seeing items funnel, how many items actually get canceled, how many items get produced, and what were the reasons. But the data is on the point here. What I have here is a couple agentic things which can help us with pulling custom information. So this is AI chat where I can technically ask for anything, but it did give me 5 questions, examples I can ask. So I'm just going to ask one of this. Okay, so let's just pick a random question and see what it does. So the way it runs, it creates a query into a Supabase, and it also creates the API call to LLM. I'm using Cloud right now, which just analyzes and putting data from Supabase together and make it in a readable way. It's specifically formatted for chat to keep it text only, not to generate any charts. But I do have an option for custom report, which doesn't just create words, it creates some tables for us. So I can request something here. So let's just ask for top 5 brands spent one fiscal versus another fiscal year. And this one will take a little longer because it will create this table, but it also does the same query to Supabase and API call plot and whatever LLM you choose to put data together and make it readable for user. As you can see, it does take a little bit of time. And when the question gets more complex, you will have to wait more time. So I do have a solution for that, which I will show you once the data populates. Okay, so the data is here. So I have a little story, top of brands, and a little table explain what happened. So let's ask exactly the same question, but in a different way. For example, I don't want to wait, so I'm just going to request a new report. This chat is coded so that it can ask me up to 3 questions if it needs to clarify information, and if it doesn't, it will just send report in a queue, which it did. So my request is sent into a queue, which I can see from my admin panel. What happens with this request, basically once the report is generated, it will be sent to user, to email. So it doesn't have to wait. The person doesn't have to wait. Okay, so here's my report being processed. So what does it mean? I have an agentic flow analyzing this request in a similar way that the other chats I showed you, but it provides a little bit deeper analysis. And it also pulls data from Supabase and does an API call. You can see I have generated reports here previously. And while it does this, I will explain how the next step works. Because if I just have to manually review each report, it will also take time and somebody will have to wait for me to do it. So instead of doing that, I created an agentic flow which will be triggered because it's selected after review. So once report is generated, the reviewer will start working. And what it does, it's basically reviews original request and reviews report and scores each report based on 4 criteria. How faithful is report to the ask? Does the data support the story? Is the story layout coherent? Is the format working? So it provides score for each of these rubrics. And if report passes, for me, it's like the score is over 4. It will automatically send email to the user with HTML report.